Good morning, everyone. I believe you are doing well. It's good to have you all today join this lecture as well. So, for today's lesson, we would be looking at histogram. Yeah, in general. But this is going to be quite easier because it's very similar to bar chart. The only difference is with histogram, there are no spaces in the boxes. With bar chart, we create spaces in the boxes. Yeah, so um, this is what I mean. So with bar chart, when you produce your axis, you just look at the entries you are supposed to make. Then you build the boxes. So if the entries is small, you can make your boxes, the space in between your boxes big enough. If the entries are much, you look at making your boxes small so that you can have spaces to mount the rest of the boxes. Now, with histogram, we do not create a space in the boxes. So we just, for histogram, we just mount the boxes on one another. So if this box ends here, the next box, you extend it. You extend it from where you left it from. Note that the height of the box must correlate with the frequency. So the height of the box goes with the frequency. So that is it. So that if the height is longer than the other, then that means that that particular box has a bigger frequency over the other. So essentially that is it. So yes, we'll be drawing histogram today. I'm gonna give you a practical question where we'll use that to draw a histogram. Now, unlike bar chart, where you would typically mount the boxes, then for the x-axis, you write the values at the middle of the boxes. For histogram, there are two approaches. You can choose to use what we call the class midpoint. So before you start to draw a histogram, there are two things you need to consider. Of course, the y-axis is always for the y-axis is always frequencies, right? Yeah, y-axis has always been a frequency. Yeah, y-axis has always been a frequency. Yeah, but for the x-axis, with bar charts, normally you look at the table involved. So I haven't done your frequencies, the x-axis, you just look at the table, the values that were given, then I said you position at the middle, right? With histogram, we don't do it like that. You have to investigate for the midpoint. That's all you use for the x-axis. Midpoint or mid value is one word. And I explained this at the start of the lecture, right? We'll go all over it again. So it's either you're using a midpoint or you're using class boundaries. I also explained this at the start of the lecture, and I told you you have to take them seriously because in our in our ongoing lecture we'll end up using them. And there we go. So with histogram, of course, the frequency you would have to scale it. Now, the x-axis, you might be wondering, what should I put there? Before you begin, it's either you create a section for midpoint, okay? Sorry, for histogram, it's either you are thinking of using a midpoint or the class water boundaries. So we're going to put that into practice. We're going to put that into practice. All right, so I'm gonna give you a typical question. So yeah, histogram is also another way of representing data. Okay. So you you match the marks or the class to their respective frequencies using boxes heights. Okay, height of boxes. So the higher the height of the box, the higher it depends the how large the frequency is. Yeah. So yeah, let's begin. So I'm going to give you a practical question. Let's write in an objective test. So this is an illustrative example. So in an objective test, marked out of marked out of 40. The marks scored by 35 students are given in the table below. So we'll put up the table here. Yeah. Right. So the first section is number of students. Then the next one is max score. I told you for frequency distribution tables, sometimes we wouldn't tell you this is frequency. You have to just look at the titles, what they mean, and you'll be able to get get a clue on which of them should be your frequencies. So number of students, we have 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, 21 to 25, 26 to 30, 31 to 35. 36 to 40. Then with a max score, we have 2, 5, 9, 6, 3, 4, 5, then 1. So normally, these are how the questions are asked. Assuming you were supposed to draw a bar chart, this wouldn't have been any news to you. This wouldn't has been a new thing to you, right? Yes. So let's see. Okay, so um uh at this section, I would like you to pause and then finish writing. When you are done, then you continue the lesson. Yeah, so you just pause, finish writing, think about the question, then you can now proceed. Okay, so now reaching this point means you have paused the video, read through the question, and you know what it is about. If that is the case, then you can join me right here. So if you had read the question properly, you would affirm that it's saying these are the marks some people scored. Okay. In fact, the number of people were stated. These are the marks scored by 35 students in a particular class test or interim assessment. Now, the marks were what? Out of 40. You see, these are written in plain English, meaning the test was conducted. The teacher scored the test out of 40. Okay? Scored the test out of 40. Now, mark scored. Some people had 2 marks. Some people had 5. Some people had 9. Some people had 6, 3, 4, and 5, and 1, right? So now let's see. So now if you take 1 to 5 student, sorry, if you take the mark, I'm coming. If you take, so we have number of student, right? Oh, did I capture this problem? Guys, you know what? Something is wrong with that question. It's funny, right? Yeah, something is wrong with the question. And I'm even realizing that here. Yeah, something is wrong with the question. But before that, let's write this. Draw, there was no instruction. That's one. Draw a histogram for the distribution. Now, if you read the question very well, you see that something is wrong with the question. You see, they've not written frequency whatsoever, but there's something wrong. It's not even from me, where I'm getting it from, but there's something wrong. So this is marks scored right in the exam. So now if you work closely, if you take mark 1, mark 2, like 1 out of 40, 2 out of 40, 3 out of 40, 4 out of 40, 5 out of 40, how many people scored that? How many people scored between 1 to 5? 2 persons. But look at the titles on the table. Should it be like that? Max score should be on the left. The number of students should be on the right, right? If you study the table closely, that range over there represent the mark score. So the 5, 2, and stuff should have been number of students. Think about it. And I'm even confirming here that in the question it was wrong, but in the approach, you see that, oh, they are doing what we are thinking. So this could be a typographical error, right? So I'm trying to see. this section should be marks scored. Yeah, you have to swap marks, right? Scored. My bad. I don't have space. Okay, we'll see how to improvise. So this section should be marks scored. Then this section should be number of students. Just imagine my table. Not the best. Yeah. Right. So now we are about drawing a histogram. Right. Now, this is very interesting. So I said to draw a histogram, the x-axis must represent class boundaries or class midpoint. Now, this was given in interval. So the mark scored was given in interval. So you can either create a section for class boundaries and use that to draw histogram, or you create a section for midpoint, then use that to draw your histogram. That reminds me of something. We learned something about bar chart. Just watch out that you can have the question in an interval form, a group. So you can have a question like this. Remember bar chart. Most of the question you used to get on group frequency distribution, 1, 2, and stuff like that. I can take you back. Yeah, most of the questions you've been getting, it's not in a range. So you finish drawing and then what you do is you just assign the marks to the bottom. You see, marks 1, 2, 3, 4. So what you've been doing is that you just draw, we don't have a diagram here, but you just draw the boxes like that. You've been drawing the boxes, right? Then you just assign the marks in between, isn't it? What if it was a range 1 to 5? You don't have to write 1 to 5 like that. It's never done. So a situation like that, we have to 1 to 5. If it's in a range, then you have to find the midpoint. Okay, so it's a midpoint you assign to the middle. So to begin by solving, you have to draw a table, copy the table, the question marks, then you have our frequency. Then the next thing you should create should be midpoint, right? So that at least you have a middle value for you can write 1 to 5 here. It's not done with bar chart. So you have to create a midpoint. How do you find a midpoint? Add the numbers. So we call that upper class limit and lower class limit. Don't forget that. All right, add them and divide by 2. So 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 on 2 is 3, right? So the first one, the midpoint is 3. The next one, let's say 6 to 10. The midpoint will be 6 plus 10, right? On 2. That'll be 16 on 2, which is 8. So the midpoint for the next is 8. So if you draw the boxes, you put the midpoint there, 3, 8. So just watch out that you can have, it's quite unlikely, but you can have a question on the bar chart that would require you to, it's in an interval, and you'll be wondering, damn, I thought bar chart is easy. I should just, all I have to do is to draw my box and just write the numbers in between. Now it's in a range. What do I do? So be wise enough to create a section for our midpoint, denoted with the symbol X. So, in fact, you can play back the video to listen to me again, okay? You have the power today to do that. Now, let's look at So now, knowing this, then that means that, I just told you that for histogram, you either use midpoint or class boundaries, right? So even with this one, if you can use midpoint, then it's almost the same as the bar chart, what we just did, right? Just that the boxes, when you are drawing, don't create spaces, right? It's almost the same as the boxes we just did, right? The bar chart we then so one way to address this question is solution. One way to address this question is by, so you repeat the question. It just said draw a bar chart. So marks, no, here is number of students. That's the question. Then we have marks score. Then now you create a section for midpoint, right? So we have 1 to 5, right? We have 6 to 10. Then we have 11 to 15. Then we have 16 to 20. Sorry. Then we have 21 to 25. Then we have 26 to 30. Then we have 31 to 35. Then we have 36 to 40. Yeah. So that's it. So we have 2, 2, 5, 9, 6, 3. 4, 5, 1. 4, 5, 1. So that is it. You rule lines to make sure you have ruled lines in between nicely, right? Nicely. Yep. Midpoint is denoted with the symbol X. Yeah. So in place of midpoint, I'm teaching you that you can write class, in place of that, you can write class boundaries. So let's finish this and I'm going to show you how to do that. Oh, look, I'm going to create a column, but I will explain. Midpoint, no. Student, that's student. In fact, when it's histogram, I like using class boundaries, honestly. But students will always be students. Let's finish with midpoint first. Okay. So you take your calculators, you add the numbers, you find the midpoint. So how would you do that? So just add the numbers 1 plus 5, right? To find the midpoint, add the upper class limit here. So add the lower class limit to the upper class limit. Divide by 2. So 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is what? 3. Do the same for the rest. So the next one will be 6 plus 10 over 2. 16 over 2. So that will be 8. 15 plus. So the next one, like that. Like that. Good. So the next one. So you have 11 plus 15. Then you divide by what? The result by 2. 11 plus 15 is 26. You divide by 2, you're getting what? 13. Yeah. The next one, 16 plus 20, which is what? 36. Oh, sorry. Then you divide by 2. So that's going to be 18. 18. And the next one, 21 plus 25, which is what? 46. Then you divide by 2. You will have in 23. Then you have 26 plus 30, which is 56. You divide by 2. If you if you divide by 2, what are you getting? Yeah, if you divide by 2, you have an I think that skipped me. Again, 26 plus 30 divided by 2. That's gonna be 28. So we repeat the same procedure for the rest. The next one, yeah. The next one is 31 plus 35. You divide by 2. That's 33. The next one, 36 plus 40. You divide by 2. You're having 38. Yeah, like that. Like that. So this is when you choose to use midpoint, okay? Yeah, 21 plus 1. I just want to confirm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 33. Right, so there we go. So again, I said with histogram, you choose which you want to use, midpoint or class boundaries. So this is when you have decided to use midpoint. Okay. Then now you draw your axis. Now I'm going to try and create space so that I can do a proper histogram for you. So draw your axis in your book. Okay. Yeah, I want you to draw your axis nicely in your book. Right. Yes. So you name the axis as usual. So this one is y-axis. Use a ruler. No double lines. Here is x-axis. X-axis. Then now you name the axis properly. So the y-axis is what? The frequency. But here no one said frequency. So the frequency here is written as, oh, did we rewrite the question again? Oh no, guys. We actually wrote the question again and made a mistake. This shouldn't be number of students, by the way. Okay, I think I was still referring to my phone instead of looking at what we have done above. So here should rather be marks scored. I'm sure some of you were alerting me that says, but it's a pre-recorded lesson. So, all right. Now, here is what? Number of students. Yeah, of course. So, no, frequency wasn't written in this question. So, but we know it's the number of students. Guys, we are not seeing frequency is number of students just because all the time when we draw, when a table is given all the time, that section is where frequency is known. But we are seeing that it's frequency because we understand what frequency means. We understood the question, the angle he was coming from, and obviously that was the frequency. So this is the number of what students. Normally I encourage that you stick with the question. Then the x-axis is what? Marks score. You don't scale it. Don't scale it. But the frequency, you have to scale it. So if we look at the entries we are having and then we use that to what? Produce a scale. So over here, you can see that the highest number we find here is 9. And the least number we find here is 1. What scale do you think will be better? At the end of the day, we want our boxes to be bigger, isn't it? We want our boxes to be bigger. So maybe we can use 2 centimeter to 1 unit. So I mean every 2 centimeter box, you move a step, so 1 unit. Don't be beating your head with that. If you don't know a 2 centimeter box, there's the starting point. Just put a ruler there. Hmm? Let's put a ruler here and measure from, there's the starting point, so 0. Put a ruler and measure. If you measure from 0 up, if you do it properly, realize that the 2 centimeter line will fall on the big box. So every 2 centimeter, I want you to label 1 unit. So if you're doing things right, I don't know, maybe your last number will be 12. So you have 1, the next one will be 2, the next one will be 3, the next one will be 4, the next one will be 5, the next one will be 6, the next one will be what? 7, the next one, yeah, yeah. The next one will be 8. The next one will be 9. If you do it, you should have everything. You should have 12. Just label to the end. I always talk about this. So for the marks, don't write anything. Draw your boxes first. When you're done, you assign these values to the middle, right? So you can just pause the video, do this. When you're done, then you replay. So for the first one, which is for the first one, no need to bother yourself. The first one, just draw a box and assign the box to 2. So now here, this is where now histogram comes in place. With histogram, the boxes are closed, no space in between, okay? So just start close to the wall. Just start close to the wall, and then you get all the boxes. Well, bar chart, that's where the struggle is because you have to create spaces in between. So for the first one, it must correspond to a frequency of what? 2. That's what matters. So the first one, I believe you have the question. So mm, you have the question. So I'll be reading from here. So for the first one, just extend a box. Yeah. Now you make sure it corresponds to what? 2. Please, your line must be straight. So don't mind me. Mine is not proper. Do the right thing. No double line. Don't follow what I'm doing. Okay, do the right thing. Because I'm limited to tools. Okay, the next one must correspond to 5. But let me check. Right. Yeah. We are using the frequencies, not anything else. So the next one must correspond to 5. So you see, with histogram, you continue to 5. You see, the width or the, how do I put it? The space in the box, the size of the box must be the same throughout. Not like one is big, then the other one small. No, no, no. So plan before you start. The next one must correspond to 9. So what would you do? You continue, right? Like that. The next one corresponds to 6. So just look at 6, and that's 6, right? The frequency. So we'll do that. Yeah. No double line. The line should be straight, no kind of shading. So pause the video and do it to the end. Now, when you are done, you come back again. Now, coming back implies that you must have gone through everything and your table looks well. So now you just write the values for midpoints at the middle. So the midpoint values, we have 3, we have 8, right? You just write them at the middle. You have 3, you have 8. Just target the middle, then you write them there. 3, 8. Then we have 13. Then we have 18, right? And so on. Now, guys, watch closely. So with histogram, we try to think of scaling, okay? Now, you see that with you see that with histogram, yeah, with histogram, normally with bar chart, the values are in right intervals. So we just position them at the middle and we go like that. But look, from 3 to 8, 8 to 13, you can see that there is no, yeah, I was, I was trying to look for a better way to get to understanding this, but I don't want to create more confusion. But what I'm trying to say is that you can see that the the distances from the start to the midpoint, okay, and from the middle point to the rest of the numbers are not equal. If you are using midpoint, They are not equal. The start to the midpoint to like, these numbers, you put them at the middle, right? Oh, these numbers, right? You put them at the middle. The distances from the start to this point are not equal to from that point to the middle point here also, right? So what do we do? So with histogram, if you are using midpoint, break your graph, break it. How would you break your graph? This is how we break our graph. So if you are using midpoint, histogram, break it. So normally this is how we break a graph. So when you have here, this your y-axis, this your x-axis, right? We normally you pull a line in, don't go too much, okay? But don't make it too small too. Pull a line in, pull it down, pull it down, pull it in again. Then you can choose to use a ruler or a freehand, okay? Then now you connect to the mainstream. So you break it, okay? So we pull it in, we pull it out, we pull it in again. Yeah. Then we join it, right? Mm. The only part you use your free hand is where the breaking. So you pull it down, it just should be tilted. You break your graph. Okay. So what have we learned so far? No, you can be doing that while listening to me. So we've learned that the histogram is just like the bar chart, but with this one, no space in between. You've also learned that with histogram, you use the midpoint in constructing. I mean, you use the midpoint in drawing the histogram. You just draw and put it at the middle. And I say when you're using the midpoint, you just break it. Unless you have a reason to believe that the values on the x-axis, when you look at the interval, they are the same. Now, that is it about histogram. In our next lecture, I will teach you drawing this with class boundaries because you can choose to draw with a class bound. Even with that, you wouldn't break it. Or you choose to use what? Midpoint. So we'll do class boundaries and I'm even come to scrap the surface to you, then you go and do that yourself. So yeah, that is the way histogram. Yeah, so if in case you're doing the class boundaries, you have to go refer to how to create class boundaries. So in place of midpoint, you will write what? Class boundaries, right? Again, refer to previous notes. Now, if you create a column for class boundaries, and let's say now you have let's say 0.5 to 5.5, yours is to just draw the boxes, right? When you draw the boxes, then you write the class boundaries and the feet, the legs. So here, you just write here 0.5, okay, 5.5. Of course, the next box. Okay, so with histogram, normally, the class interval, sometimes they can be equal, they may be unequal, right? But I told you for comma, we'll concentrate on questions, the intervals are equal. So if you're doing right, the next one, you're obviously having something like 5.5 to 6.5, something like that. Yeah, so in such a situation, 5.5 is already there. So the next one will be what? 6.5, like that. So you just write the boundaries at the feet. Yeah. Someone can even choose to start drawing from here. It's all about just mounting your box. In that case, you can write 0, okay? Your frequencies, of course, maybe you have 2, 1, 2, 3 stuff. So you can put 0 here, right? Then that same where you're writing zero, you do something like that, write 0.5. So if you're reading from here 0.5, right, to 5.5 and stuff. So like at your table at the edge, you do something like this. I think I've given you a lot of information today. Pause, replay, and do that over and over again. Okay. Now, knowing this, I'm gonna give you a question to try yourself. I know we didn't do class boundaries into detail, so I want you to use midpoint. Then try and use class boundaries too. So draw two diagrams, one with class boundaries, one with class midpoint, and send your solution to me right now. Send it to me on WhatsApp. I'll be waiting right now. So I'm just writing the question for you. Thank you.